I recently threw a paddleboarding event here in Fort Lauderdale, and I want to recap the entire experience from planning all the way to being on the water. At the end of this video, you'll have a much better idea of whether or not paddleboarding is something that you want to do in the future, and more importantly, how and where to paddleboard here in Fort Lauderdale. The first 2 years living in Florida, all I did was work. And one day I snapped out of it and I thought to myself, why the heck did I move across the country if all I'm gonna do is sit inside and not take advantage of the very reasons I moved here, which is the weather, the sunshine, the beach, things like that. So over the next few months, I became more intentional with making time for things like this. And then I realized if this is happening to me, or if this did happen to me, and if I'm feeling this way, surely there's other people out there that also get trapped in their professional lives and never make time to enjoy themselves. I started to brainstorm ideas on how to get other people that were in a similar stage of life as me and would love to get out there and explore more of where they live. Thus, No New Friends was born. No New Friends is something I put together for young adults who live in and around Fort Lauderdale to meet people and do things we often take for granted living in South Florida. Paddleboarding being one of those things. The place I got connected with to make this entire paddleboarding thing happen was Sunrise Paddleboards off of Federal Highway in Fort Lauderdale. There were a lot of details and prep work to take care of it to make sure everything went smoothly, but you don't care about that. Let's fast forward to us getting on the water. After everyone showed up and got a brief rundown of the route we were taking, the team over at Sunrise Paddleboards helped everyone get on the water. I opted to lead the group myself rather than having an actual tour guide to keep the cost lower for the group. So off we went. I'm sitting here making this video and I still can't believe how perfect of a day it was. The weather was so good that it almost felt like God was patting me on the back and thanking me for getting everyone out of the house and on the water to go do something. The route started here at the paddleboard shop and we started making our way west to a nature preserve called Kalahachie Park. About 5 minutes into the paddle, one of my friends realized that he forgot his phone. Naturally, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but he's a nurse and he was on call, so he had to go back and get it. A couple of people stayed back with him to make sure he knew where to go when he got back, but the rest of us kept going. It took over 20 minutes and every muscle in his body to catch back up to us. When he finally did, we had already made it to the turnaround spot, which is the nature preserve I mentioned just a second ago. As we left the canal and entered the nature preserve, the route got super narrow. We were paddling single file line between a wall of mangroves, and then we got hit with our first obstacle. It was a bridge that at first glance didn't look like anyone was making it under, but we all ended up laying flat on our boards and were able to go through. Well, everyone except for the one person who opted for the kayak. The nature preserve was short-lived because by the time we got everyone under the bridge, the first people that went through were already back to let us know that it was a dead end and there wasn't much more to see beyond where we were. So back under the bridge, everybody went. On the way back, it really began to sink in how cool this entire thing was. What started as a desire to slow down a little bit and experience things that we have at our fingertips here in South Florida turned into friends meeting new friends and conversations about what we could do next. These social events where we get together and experience a different part of South Florida is something that I'm going to continue doing. Follow No New Friends on Instagram to stay updated on what our next event is gonna be. Other than that, if you have any questions about paddleboarding in Fort Lauderdale or any other activity for that matter, drop a comment below. I'd love to help you out. That being said, I'll see you in the next video.